Yo, 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 yo! What's up, guys? My name's Tyler, and welcome back to Let's Build the Ultimate Theme Park in Planet Coaster. We're still hauling on this, and this is one of my favorite episodes in a while, because we're about to get super creative. Look at that skyline. Some hot stuff right there. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to quickly finish up this coaster we started a couple episodes ago. This wing coaster that I built over by the chain lift of the Star Wars coaster. And I wanted to fill up a little bit of this space with something, because we're starting to get to the point of this theme park where we don't really have any free space to build things, so we have to kind of work with some of the smaller spaces that we have left. But wing coasters are pretty fun, and they look really, really cool. Their trains are huge and weigh a ton. Whenever I went to Cedar Point, they have a wing coaster called the Gatekeeper that goes over the park entrance, just like the coaster you saw at the beginning of this video. Although my coaster was surprisingly not inspired by the Gatekeeper because I didn't go to Cedar Point until a couple months ago. But due to the pandemic, they were limiting the capacity for all the trains by about half. Like there was people in every other seat so they could be spaced out by 6 feet. But winged coasters, they were able to do full capacity on the trains, and that's because the seats are already spaced out by about 6 feet each. So they were able to fill up the whole entire train and still maintain social distancing. The thing that sets this wing coaster apart is that half of it is underground. I decided that it's going to start in this gigantic underground storage room / warehouse. We're going to make it seem like this area is just used for a bunch of cargo and stuff for the gigantic space sci-fi complex that we have. And at first I was having a bit of difficulty trying to find a way for all of the tracks to fit down in this space and not look weird, because the tracks also can't get too close to each other because these wing trains, they stick out pretty far. But we got it all connected up, we have a full circuit, and we're just going to go ahead and leave this coaster be for a while because this is not the main focus of this video. The main focus of this video is going to be the Wild Mouse coaster that we built over inside all of the skyscrapers over in our city. So we have a bunch of indoor rooms for this ride that are all going to have completely different themes. And right now, the inside of all these buildings looks absolutely atrocious. So it's going to take a lot of work to make them all look good. And a lot of the work is going to be just kind of for us, because whenever you're riding this ride, you go through these rooms pretty quickly. Like this room that we're working on right now, you just have like one dip on the Wild Mouse coaster. But regardless, I'm still going to be putting the maximum amount of effort into it because that's just how I am. So the themes for these rooms are going to be a combination of ideas that I compiled from episode 62, where I asked you guys what you think I should do inside of these rooms. And then a couple rooms will just be utilizing scenery pieces that I've wanted to use for other rides, but just haven't found a good use. So pretty much this coaster is just going to be a scenery showcase for scenery pieces and themes that didn't make the cut for having a full ride based off of them in this park. So the theme of this very first room is going to be an underwater theme. I'm going to be filling it with coral, bubbles, seaweed, and different aquatic looking things to make it look like you're traveling through the deep blue. Maybe we should have a theme song as you're going through. Who rides on a coaster that's under the sea? But I found these gigantic pieces of coral on the Steam Workshop that I placed in here that I think add the most detail to this. Added an anchor, some little messages in a bottle, put in a boat that's going to be somewhat buried underneath the sand like it's sunk. I put some bubbles on the wall, adding lots of seaweed. I'm going to put like a big layer of blue at the very top to make it seem like you're underwater to a certain degree. Overall, the game does not have a ton of underwater pieces, so I'm happy that I'm only doing a room based off of this theme and not a whole ride. And something a little bit unrelated that I wanted to mention really quick is that we just got an announcement from Frontier, the makers of Planet Coaster, that they're porting Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, the definitive edition, to the Nintendo Switch, which is going to include the expansion packs for Soaked and Wild, which are the expansions that allow you to build water parks and zoos. Makes me wonder if we're ever going to get that water park expansion for Planet Coaster or something similar. Who knows, maybe someday, still gotta hold on to hope. It takes time to create games, especially really good ones, so just gotta be patient, I think. But in case you didn't know, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was the best theme park simulation game we had for a solid 10 years before Planet Coaster was finally announced. And I'd still say it's overall a pretty fun game, especially if you want a theme park simulation game that's a little bit more basic, because Planet Coaster can be a bit difficult sometimes, because sometimes having too many options can be a problem. But I'm excited that such a classic is coming to the Nintendo Switch because I think all games should be on the Nintendo Switch. I don't know why. I think it's just because I'm a Nintendo fanboy and I love the Switch, and I just love seeing games that I enjoy being on the Switch and being able to be played on the go mobily. I think that's pretty cool. Like, if I knew as a kid that Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, one of my favorite games, was going to be able to be played on a mobile device, I would have been like, what? But here we are today, and that's what's going to be happening. I'm not sure if we'll ever get Planet Coaster on a mobile device. That'd be a much bigger task, because this game takes a lot of processing power. And also, something else to add is this coaster that I'm building right now and decorating, I'm building it to be a dark ride, so it's only going to be ridden during the nighttime. The lighting is going to have a major effect on it. Technically, you could ride it during the daytime if this game was a bit more realistic and the interiors of buildings would stay dark during the daytime like a regular building does. But since the buildings get lit up on the inside when it's daytime, we're going to have to ride it during nighttime to like replicate the feeling that these buildings actually work. Oh, and finishing touch, giant shark head. Let's go. This room turned out pretty cool overall. I think it has a really nice vibe, especially with the lighting. I say the downside is that the room feels a little bit boxy, but given the fact that you're only going to spend about 5 seconds in here and that it's also inside a building that is very box-like on the exterior, I think it's going to be okay. Alright, for now let's move on from the underwater section. We might come through and add a little bit more polish in the future if I think of some more ideas. But next I want to work on the room afterwards, which is going to be a Christmas Candyland theme section. I'm making all of the walls and floors out of gingerbread. We're gonna have a little gingerbread house, and we're gonna have lots of Christmas stuff everywhere. I didn't want to put like a full Christmas area in the theme park because one, I don't have the snow texture, so I can't actually cover the ground in snow. I can only use the snow pile scenery to do that. And two, I feel like having a full Christmas theme section would be kind of weird because it's like a seasonal thing. I think it works for like a room in this roller coaster, but I feel like we also don't have the space for a Christmas theme section in this park, and I already have other ideas that I'd rather do instead over an area themed like this. But it was really fun decorating this area for the time that I did. There is so many scenery pieces to work with in the Christmas pack, which I don't think the Christmas scenery was in the game when it was first launched. It was included in the first free update of the game though, if I remember correctly, which came out around Christmas time, so that makes sense. But we have a ton of different candy pieces. There's so much candy. Like, I kind of do want to make a Candyland ride at some point as well because it's kind of cool. And then we have the Christmas tree, which you can decorate yourself. There's a bunch of ornaments and bells and whistles for you to add on to it. There's a ton of different presents that you can place around your tree. And the color customization options on these presents allows you to have so many different looking presents. It's insane. Like, all of the presents have 3 main colors. The first 2 colors dictate the color of the box. If you set those 2 colors to be the same thing, it makes the present look like a solid color. But if you make those 2 colors different colors, then it is like a pattern of some sort, like stripes or snowflakes or polka dots or something. But you're able to hide those by making it monochromatic. And then you have a separate color for the ribbon on top as well. So there's a lot of options you can do there. And then I have the train dip underneath this bridge that is going to be covered in an assortment of sweets and confections and candy, chocolates, pretty much everything that'll get the guests salivating so we can get the guest taste buds watering so they want to go to the candy shop that we have in the very front of the park on the way out. You gotta have the sweet shop at the very front of the theme park because most people don't really buy the candies and sweets while they're at the park because they don't want to get like sick when they're running around and riding the coasters. But usually when the park's closing and everybody's walking out and just kind of meandering on their way out, they usually stop at the candy shop, and that's usually when the kids are able to convince their parents to let them buy one of those gigantic suckers or those tubes where you can make your own gigantic custom pixie sticks and fill them up with a bunch of sugary powder. Probably not the healthiest for you, but it's delicious. Alright, so we're starting the next room of the coaster, which we filled up with terrain when we were first building the coaster, and I was inspired by a few comments that really wanted me to include rainbows into this theme park. So the way I'm doing that is I have these crystal pieces that you're able to change into any color that you want, and they look awesome during the nighttime. And we're going to be having you go through a cavern full of tons of color crystals. And I'm thinking about calling it the Spectrum Mines. But those pixie sticks that I was telling you about earlier, those are actually made out of these crystals. Once you grind these crystals up into a very fine powder, you're able to eat it like a delicious, delicate rock candy. But I'm putting some excavation equipment down here to make it look like there's people who are mining these up. And as you're flying through these caverns, it's going to be really dark, and pretty much all you're going to be seeing is the crystals for the most part. And it's going to have a few like headshot moments where it seems like you're about to hit a crystal, but then the track dips underneath it. This area didn't take too long to make, but aesthetic-wise, it's becoming one of my favorite little sections of the theme park because these crystal scenery pieces are very, very pretty. And the fact that you can make them such vibrant colors is just, it makes me such a happy lad. Also, another mini announcement, I started my Death Park series where I make my theme park with no rules or no laws. The first episode is up and I'm working on the second episode right now. If you want to check out that series, I will have a link down in the description and also a link on the Inslate as well. My favorite thing about creating this new park as well is I like the biome that I'm building the park in. It has a completely different vibe, and it's fun to work in an area that has such a unique look and lots of interesting terrain and landforms everywhere, like canyons and arches. So yeah, would appreciate if you check that out. And something else I just found out is that apparently Planet Coaster is coming to Mac in November, which I'll do a little bit more research on that in between episodes, and we'll talk about that next episode, but that's some pretty big news. I did not realize that was happening. That's sick. But let's go ahead and start working on this next section, which is inspired by a movie that I enjoy called Cabin in the Woods. So first off, the concept is I'm building a ton of little jail cells that I'm going to be filling up with a bunch of different monsters. Now the Ghostbusters expansion pack that they added recently included a lot of animatronic monsters and ghosts that were perfect to put in these little cells. And at first I was using them around the Pokemon Snap Ride a little bit to add some more movement, but lots of people did not want me to do that because they didn't want non-Pokemon in the Pokemon Snap Ride. So I deleted all those, and I think we're just gonna put all those monsters in jail in this little section. But this is the room with the chain lift, so as you're going up this chain lift, you'll be able to look to your side and see all of these monsters in cages, and it's gonna look pretty cool, I think. You pretty much only see all of these concepts for a few seconds each, but I think just going on a coaster where there's just a completely new concept in every single room is really, really cool. And will add on to the re-rideability of this coaster by a ton. Now the Cabin in the Woods inspiration comes from a horror movie that's kind of like a meta-level horror movie, where a company that creates horror movies has all of these monsters locked in these cages, and they have different people set into different scenarios, and they like just randomly choose a monster to let free in the woods and chase these people around. And at some point, the people who are being chased find their way into the laboratory, and they're on this elevator where they can just see hundreds and hundreds of jail cells filled with different horror movie monsters that are being held onto until they're used to attack people for the movies. And so that's kind of where I got the inspiration for this, is I wanted to just have a big wall full of jail cells filled with different monsters and stuff that seemed like they could be used. It's a pretty fun concept, and if you enjoy horror movies that make you think a little bit more, Cabin in the Woods is a pretty good one. The beginning of it is your typical horror movie where college kids go into a cabin in the woods and they're attacked by like zombies or something, and then halfway through they find out they're in a giant simulation and they find their way into the secret headquarters. It's really cool. And since there's such a wide variety of these Ghostbuster animatronics to use as the monsters for our little section, I think we're able to like kind of translate it almost perfectly. And I'm also sad to say that we are nearing the end of this episode, unfortunately. For all the other rooms of this ride, I have a bunch of ideas that I took from your guys' comment section. A few of the ideas that we did today were ideas that I already had that I wanted to implement into this ride, but for the other rooms, I will be taking your guys' ideas. But let's go ahead and do a quick ride through of the rooms that we've built so far. So here's the Spectrum Mines. It's looking nice and colorful. It's a little bit rough, but I'm pretty sure Wild Mouse coasters are supposed to be pretty rough. You're supposed to get flung to the side of your cart quite a bit. It's kind of what they're known for. Got the transition in between buildings. As we go up the chain lift, we can look over at these monsters. All of these rooms are about 80% finished. I'm gonna go through and add even more details in the future, just so you know. Here's the underwater room. It goes by pretty fast and we get eaten by the shark. And the inside of the shark's belly is a festive Christmas area, what you would least expect. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.